Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Lotus Life Podcast. I'm really excited about today's episode because I have a new microphone right here. And I am loving the sound quality, and I hope you are too. I can talk much softer, and yeah, it sounds really good. So, how are you? How's everything going? I wanted to first just check in and ask and send you love, and I hope everything is going well. And if you are going through challenges right now, I encourage you to see them as much as you can as a lesson and a blessing. I know that's hard, but yeah, I'm just feeling like starting off the podcast with that positivity of hang in there and keep your chin up, literally as well. Like how you sit in the moment, how you stand, how you hold your body will send very specific signals to your brain that you're doing okay or you're doing not okay. So sometimes you just have to fake it in the moments and bring about that which you're hoping to feel. And I think that's a nice segue into what I intended to talk about as well, which is working with difficult emotions when they're not your own, and how we can so easily take on other people's emotions without realizing that we are, or maybe because we play this role of listener must mean and equates to, we mistaken that listening well must also equate to us absorbing and becoming that person's state. So I wanted to speak with you about what I have been currently actively working on in my life right now, which is how to be present without absorbing someone else's stuff. It's really difficult for me because I'm a very empathetic person. I love emotions. And one of my gifts is that when I show up and I am actively listening to you, that I step into your emotional state. I'm empathetic. And I think that that is a real skill to practice and to do well. And when you do, you pave the way in relationships. You are able to connect on a really vital and important human level with other people. And immediately they feel comfortable around you when you can develop your empathetic listening skills, but also there's a state your body takes on. There's an energy, there's a presence about you when you have empathy, when you have compassion, and the listener, or the speaker rather, feels that from you, that they're being held with your listening, they're being held with your presence, and that allows them to feel more comfortable and more aware at times of their own feelings. And there's some real healing that can happen there by you showing up and just listening. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to focus on when you're doing that well and how you can take on those emotions and suddenly they are your own, they're in your body and you're dealing with that. And what we can do as spiritual and yoga practitioners to cleanse ourselves of that excess energy if we've taken it on, because sometimes you have to, especially when it's your close family or your children, in a sense. Like sometimes there's value in taking on someone else's emotion. But also, what can you do in the first place if you have time to prep before going into a conversation? What can you do? What mantra can you hold on to? What presence can you have about yourself so that when you show up into these conversations and you know that there's going to be a tidal wave of emotion, how do you stay in your calm center as a sovereign entity, as a sovereign agent, as a sovereign goddess, God and goddess? How do you stay in that center and not become so permeable to other people's words and emotions? So, first of all, there's nothing wrong with taking on someone else's emotion. There's nothing wrong with feeling empathy and feeling others' emotional states. It's a gift. And it's a beautiful human quality. And it's necessary on many levels. I believe I read that the brain releases oxytocin, which is, they call the bonding, the relationship bonding neurotransmitter. It's released when a newborn is breastfeeding. It's released in the newborn and the mother as a bonding element, as a bonding neurotransmitter to help infant and mother bond more. For example, it happens when you and your significant other are working out together and having fun. You not only get dopamine, but you get a nice dose of that, of all of those neurotransmitters that helps you to bond in relationship. So what your brain and your subjective self ends up feeling is, I relate to this person. I'm one of them, and because I feel the emotional state they're going through, I can relate to them, and we can go deeper into conversation, which only further bonds us together. And then there's trust that's established. So that's really essential in our society, and from an evolutionary perspective, that you feel that you're talking to someone who emotionally gets you. Because if they don't, there's a lack of trust right away, and there's a lack of probability that you're going to turn to them for future issues in the future, right? So that's really important. And on the other hand, it's also very important that you understand that you do not have to have a bleeding heart always. You do not have to be so open that you are constantly being like you're a vessel and people are just dumping their drama into you, and that you mistakenly think of as a form of active listening. Active listening means that you show up with presence, and you show up with no judgment, which really means that you show up not judging yourself. I'll say that one more time. Active listening is about presence. Active listening is about showing up, you not judging someone, but active listening is really about you showing up, not judging yourself. So there's a lot of personal inner work that needs to be done first and foremost before one is actually able to truly dive into active listening. You need to get out of your own way and be okay, be radically in love and okay, more than okay, with yourself before you truly can be there for someone else. So once you do that work, or are currently doing that work, you're going to find that your capacity, your expansiveness is growing. So your capacity to be there for other people is naturally going to arrive. You'll naturally be called to serve. Okay, and that's great, right? So suddenly we're out there in the world and we're showing up for friends and family and strangers, by the way, in such a compassionate and open state. And we are becoming more actively engaged and invested in the emotional state of other people because we realize that it's important. And that's beautiful. But then there's a tipping point, right? There's a tipping point where we have absorbed everyone else's emotion and their wounds and their reactions and their trauma because we mistakenly thought that there does not need to be boundaries in place when you're actively listening, because active listening is love, right? So why would I need boundaries where there should be nothing but love and non-judgment? So let's first get out there that non-judgment is different from boundaries. Non-judgmental awareness simply means that you do not have a preference. You can let things come in and leave the picture as they need to. You are not grasping at something, nor are you retreating for something. There is non-judgmental awareness. So there's also awareness. You are aware of. You're the watcher within you, that self that can look out and watch something happen without being attached or without wanting to run away from it. That's the watcher. The observant self is watching things move in and out of the body, watching emotions move in and out, watching the situation come towards you, and whatever it is that's happening. That's non-judgmental awareness, and you're neutral about it. And really what you're doing is holding the space. You're just being the container with your listening. And that's really valuable for someone else to feel that they have that space with you. Now, that's different from boundaries. Boundaries are, here's how you can love me better. I like to be loved like this. I do not like to be loved like that. Because if you cross that line, that actually feels like it hurts me, or that actually triggers me, or that actually, etc. So boundaries are where you actually do care. Boundaries are where you've learned that because you are who you are, you've had the life you've had so far, that there are things that make you come alive and there are things that shut you down. And you've learned that about yourself. So you are a steward of, you become responsible for guarding lovingly the gates to your own self, so that what comes in is actually fuel for you and your state and where you're heading in your highest yes. It's fuel for you to unlock your hidden potential or your forgotten potential. You are guarding your greatness so that whatever comes in is actually not poison, but it actually is there as an elixir to heal and help. And that's actually important, by the way, because that allows you to feel stronger and more, to have higher pranic states, which allows you to expand more, which allows you to then be more or a better active listener. So you having boundaries actually fuels the process of you becoming an even better active listener and holding space for others and their trauma, their wounds, their shadow. Boundaries come from you, though, and I think that's where it gets really difficult for people, because they think if I say here's a boundary, someone else might think I don't want to listen to them, or I don't care about them, or it's all about me, or a boundary, they might not like me because I set a boundary up. First of all, if that's happening, then bye-bye, exit that relationship. Because if you set up a boundary and someone else is triggered by that, then that's on them. You have still done a very good thing, because you have, being in a human body, you have finite energy. Now your consciousness itself and your energetic state is unbound and infinite, but your physical self and our subjective self has a finite amount of energy, because we're busy throughout the day. So we have to guard our greatness. That is my phrase that I use all the time. Guard the gates, your ears, your eyes, your mouth. Any place that information can get in on any level. We must guard our greatness and understand what subtracts from it and what adds to it, because ultimately, if you're subtracting constantly from yourself, are you going to have any capacity to love others? Hell no. Are you going to have any capacity whatsoever to be open and unobjective, or I should say, non-judgmentally aware? No, in fact, the opposite happens, right? When you're tired and you're low on energy, what do? You like pick everyone apart? That's when I get the most critical of my partner. As soon as I start to pick at Brandon, I'll go, oh, because I've recognized my patterns. I'm tired, I'm hungry. I'll stop picking on Brandon and I'll go and just take care of myself. And I'll tell him, okay, you know what? I need to go for a walk outside. Sorry, I'm getting cranky. I'll be right back. And I go and I take care of me. I fill my cup back up, which allows me to expand again. I love myself. I'm in a state of radical self-acceptance and radical self-love. And then boom, I'm back into a state of non-judgmental awareness where my shit flows in and out, literally and figuratively, right? When we're in these high pranic states, we're also like ridding our body of toxins as well, but also energetically and emotionally, whatever comes up in me, I'm less attached to. I don't always believe this story. And then we can show up for others as well with both space to listen and with loving boundaries. So let me give you an example of a loving boundary in a conversation. I just had to do this recently with a private client. Our time had gone over by just a tiny bit on our call, and we were having a loving and lovely conversation. But I needed to wrap it up to get back into my day because the other things I'm working on fill my cup and are also for you guys. And so I need to guard my greatness so that I can appropriately get to all of the beautiful things I have to do throughout the day so that I can continuously serve. And part of that is making sure that I go for my walk in nature, that I have my time with my cat in the morning, that I am having my coffee. There are things that I like to do. Also, my own morning ritual as well when I dance and I journal. So I had to say to her, thank you. I want to be aware of the time. Thank you so much for your presence today. And this conversation was incredible, but I do need to get going. And if we want to book more time after these calls, let me know and I'll add on extra time if I can. But my mornings are really tight because I have so much to do. So that what I did is I let her know what the boundary was. I needed to go, why it was in place, because I have a lot of great things I'm working on and I need to make sure that my energy is allocated to them. And I let her know that she didn't hurt me at all by overstepping the boundary that she didn't know was there in the first place. Like she did no wrong because I never set up that boundary. I never said it was a hard stop at such and such time. So that was on me. So like I had to also let that person know I'm not upset, that I'm not scolding them, is that I'm really enjoying this conversation. I so appreciate everything you shared with me. However, I do need to get going because, and I look forward to the next time. Then the follow up, the next sentence is if you ever feel like we want to extend our conversation and our talk, like just let me know and if I can, I'll add some more time on our call. And she received that with love because I gave it with love. She received my boundary with love and respect because I gave it. I expressed it with love and respect. Not only to her because I love and respect her, but because I love and respect me. Do you see that? Do you feel that? How loving ourselves and setting up boundaries is really saying to others and ourselves, here's how I can love myself better, and here's how you can be in relationship with me in a very helpful way for both of us. This is really the first step you must get down and practice and practice and practice and fuck it up and practice again anyway and start to set a boundary and then chicken out and then try it again the next time with someone else who, you have to practice it. I have found, let me finish my thought. You have to practice this in order to do this next piece, which I wanted to really talk about, which is not take on other people's drama, not take on other people's emotion that are not your own. Okay, because that'll start to subtract from you. And then we're closing down and we're getting judgmental again. We're becoming afraid. We're seeing competition. We're seeing people as separate. And then we're seeing things as problems, which is probably the state that most of us listening to this find ourselves in more likely than not. And so we have to step back and away from that and really just change up our relationship and how we approach conversations that we're in, how we approach relationships that we are in. So let me just insert in there the practice piece. I fail often at setting boundaries. I'm just going to say that to you now with all the love in the world because it's my truth. And I want you to know where I'm coming from. I always want to be real with you guys because it's not about being perfect at all. It's about fucking it up. It's about trying and messing it up and trying and messing it up and trying and not being perfect. But what you're doing often when you're taking action on something like setting a boundary is you're getting better at it. Anything you practice in life, you are going to get better at. We might as well practice some good things, even though they're scary. They're so scary at first. And some of you are probably like masters at setting boundaries, but you're probably not good at holding the line. You might be like, oh, I tell people boundaries all the time. But you may tell boundaries all the time to different people. And it actually does take practice reminding people, like the people we love out in a sense have to be trained like a puppy. Not that they are puppies, but we do have to train people on how to, from time to time, hey, remember that this was a boundary because no one's perfect and people are busy and they forget. Um, so maybe it's not a problem for you to set a boundary, but it's a problem for you to consistently hold it. Maybe it's not a problem for you to set the boundary and consistently hold it, but it's a problem for you not to feel guilt after setting a boundary because maybe you were taught or modeled in your childhood that boundary, you shouldn't rock the boat, that you shouldn't be sovereign, that it's about bending the knee and yielding to everyone else but yourself. That these are all the things that are going to come up as you practice boundaries, which I know you already know because they're difficult and it doesn't come naturally. Boundaries do not come naturally. You have to practice them. So start with someone you feel very, very safe with and practice with that person often. I have told people in the past, hey, this is going to sound really weird, but I'm practicing boundaries and I feel so safe with you and I love you so much. Like, can I try one with you? Not that you're doing anything wrong, but like I just want to express something about what I've learned about myself. And would you be okay with that? And of course they're gonna say yes, because it's gonna be really fun and cool. And they probably have one they want to practice with you because everyone's awful at boundaries. And we all want to try it. It's like a fun thing to practice with someone you love and feel safe with. So go ahead and try that. And then you'll develop some resiliency and it'll just start to come easier and easier. That's the groove I'm in now, is that some people are still really difficult to set a boundary with. And I'm like nervous. I anticipate it. I know it needs to happen. But because I've been practicing it with a lot of people that I feel safe with, I actually have courage now. And I also rest back in the knowing of why it's important. And I'll just hit that one more time. Here's the cycle. I'm using my hands. I'm using my hands to do this like cyclic movement, right? Because like it is a complete circle here. As soon as you set a boundary, what you're really doing is guarding your greatness, meaning that you are saying that what comes into my ears right now, my eyes, the food I'm eating, etc., it's important to me that it adds to my experience. It adds to my energy in this beautiful temple, this vessel that I get to inhabit. It does not subtract, but it adds. And adding love and positivity and a state of yes into the body is what allows you to expand your presence, your consciousness, your energetic field. And when you expand, you are making room for everything in life, all of the positive and all of the shadow and everything in between that we do not even have a name or categorization for. We allow all of life to move in and around us so it doesn't get lodged and we don't have judgment for it. We don't have names for it. Package it away where it becomes a wound. It becomes this energetic knot. We allow it to flow with this non-judgmental awareness. And that is a sign and a state of being in a radical state of self-love and self-acceptance for yourself. Remember, I said that that's the state you need to master first, or at least be practicing with, before we can truly be there for other people. We need to be in a state of radical self love and self acceptance for ourselves, which can only really be there through the expansion of self, which can only really be there because you've been adding value into your mind, your emotions, and your energy and your body. That expansive state is what gives us space, which allows us to feel open and happy and unattached to any of the shadow or fear or grief. We see it all as just like a snow globe being shook up and moving about. And we have now a state of radical self-love because it's all so incredible. And we feel neutral. We feel that the moments are gifts. So then when we're in conversation with someone else and we need to exit because the time is up, we won't feel ashamed or weird or uncomfortable saying, "This has been wonderful. I want to do this again, but I do need to get going." And you say it with love because you have been loving them during the conversation. Your active listening has been a form of love, and it has been filling you up. But you also know that you need to guard your greatness. So there is going to be a cutoff point. Just like when you get full, you stop eating, there is a cutoff point. When you're listening to others, when you're calling them to check in on how they're doing, we need to make sure that we understand that we cannot fix them. That's a form of boundary right there, is you're setting for yourself. I cannot fix people and their problems. Right there, I'm guarding my own greatness and my own energy reserves. Otherwise, if I believe I can fix someone, what am I going to do? I'm going to go in with everything I've got. I'm going to bleed for them. I'm going to completely deplete my own energy, and I'll be back down to bottom. And maybe even resentful if they don't change because of all the time I've invested in trying to fix you, right? We get so hooked on trying to fix people, thinking that they're broken in the first place. So set that boundary in place for yourself that I will not fix this person. I'm here just to listen. Right? Does that feel good? Knowing that you can give yourself that permission up front of like, they're not broken. I'm not broken. I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to listen and be unattached. Excuse me. When you know that you are about to have a conversation, let me get a drink of water here. Okay. I bet you heard every single swallow and muscle in my throat because this this microphone is like incredible. Sorry, guys. So what I was gonna say was this: when you know that you're about to step into a difficult conversation, like a friend just had a family member die, or someone, a friend or family member is experiencing some very great loss on whatever level, and you're checking in on them. You know that conversation is going to be heavy.